insulting to the Jewish people to say that without this they would not have known that perjury, say, just to take one example, was wrong. If they thought perjury was okay, they wouldn't have been able to stick together long enough to get to the foot of Mount Sinai or wherever it was or was not.
You're saying that religion or the commandments don't serve the foundation of morality?
No, I also think it's also very dangerous to say that what should be effortless, innate, the sort of thing that you don't have to teach to children, is instead something that you only can get from an unanswerable dictator, from a totalitarian authority who says, I command you this, and in return, I give you the territory of other people. I'll give you land that I will clear, holy land that I will clear of the existence of all others. I'll give you the power to murder and slaughter and erase and take away the property of anyone who gets in your way. That's not morality, that's an inducement.
But so what do you say to true believers, those who sincerely question whether true morality can exist in the absence of God?
Well, I'd point out to them that they're mistaken. And also,
and you do so quite aggressively.
I worry for them, because it makes me wonder, if they didn't believe in the existence of God, would they stop believing in the existence of the principles? I mean, in other words, what is stopping them? I once saw, it's in my book, which you might have mentioned, by the way, is at fine bookstores everywhere.
Yeah, I think I mentioned bestseller, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
It's called God is Not Great, How Religion Points to Everything. I saw a famous debate between a Catholic bishop, Bishop Butler, and Professor A.J. Ayer, great humanist professor. The bishop said to the professor, if you believe there's no God, what stops you from going on an endless campaign of rape, theft, murder, incest, and the rest of it? I mean, and I was agog to see this question from a man of God, a man of the cloth, as was Freire. It's a monstrous thing to say. That if I didn't agree with you, I would become a psychopath. I mean, what arrogance! Unbelievable. This from a church, by the way, which has been the empowerer, shelterer, and coverer up of the rape and torture of children for decades, if not centuries. But worse than that, and I pose this question in my book: what's in the bishop's mind? Is he saying to himself, "Thank goodness I believe in the resurrection, because otherwise I'd be out there raping and pillaging and perjuring. I mean, that's all that's stopping me." Well, that's a huge confession for the guy to make. I think.
But clearly you disagree.
I'm sorry to say I have enough self. No, I'm not sorry to say. Right. I'm glad to say I have enough self-respect in my own instance to say no. That's not what stops me. It's not the fear of hellfire that stops me doing these things.
But I mean, and you do make that point.
Or the fear of some posturing priest.
But if the priest or the believer who says, it's because I want to go to heaven, or it's because I believe in this set of rules, then therefore doesn't do those things, doesn't, right?
Then I have a great Sufi prayer for those people, from a very fine old wise man of antiquity who prayed and said, God, if I believe in you out of fear of heaven, deny me heaven. If I believe in you out of did I say fear of heaven? Out of wish for heaven. Out of the desire for heaven, deny me heaven. If I only believe in you out of fear of hell, send me straight to hell. It matters what the motive is, what the state of mind is.
Because surely there's people who are doing good things in the world in the name of religion. Would you agree to that at least? I mean, whether it's liberation theology or whether it's
certainly
digging wells and
theology,
well,
no. Liberation theology is nonsense, sinister nonsense.
Well, would you agree that there's anything in the world that has been done in the name of religion that's positive? Habitat for Humanity.
It falls under things done by Jimmy Carter are done by Jimmy Carter. If you're telling me people wouldn't help build affordable housing if they weren't Baptist fundamentalists.
No, I'm telling you that they do it for those reasons.
Well, then let them do it. But it just says nothing about their faith. Carter's faith is still nonsense. Carter's the guy who runs Habitat for Humanity is still the guy who goes to the Israelis and says the problem with you is you've abandoned the prophetic tradition. You've walked away from your religion. You've become too secular. That's what's wrong with your state. A wicked and ridiculous thing to be saying. He can hammer as many nails into as many staircases as he likes for the rest of his life. He won't make up for the horror of that remark.
I'm wondering when you read a book
or his belief in UFOs, or his belief that he's been born again when once is quite enough with a guy like Carter, believe me.
When you write a book like God is Not Great, which I think is if not provocative, a tremendously entertaining read. I mean, it's and
available at fine bookstores.
Thank you. Yes,
nationwide.
Tell me who you think your audience is, because you're quite aggressive with your argument. And really, if you want to, I mean, if you really want to change things, it might take some effort, to overcome organized religion in the world. But I'm wondering if the tact of saying, hey, being a little softer in your approach might be more effective than I'm wondering if you're going to find a receptive audience for believers who just hear someone who's very aggressively telling them they're wrong.
I know what you're saying, and you're kind to give me tactical advice. But when I launched the book, I said to my publishers, I don't want to do the liberal traditional book tour of Toronto, New York, Vancouver, Seattle, Los Angeles, blah blah. Mm-hmm. I want to go to the South of the United States, and I want to get a challenger in every city we go to, whether it's Atlanta or Little Rock or so forth, and we have a debate about it, not just do a reading in an upscale bookstore. And so that's how it did get launched, and that's why it's a bestseller, because I get invited not less than twice a month to either the campuses or the pulpits of the American Christian right.
Do you think you win people over who are already
I will. If I
converts?
don't, I give them reason to rethink. I can't say I win them over. I know I've won some people over, but that's not the point. The point, I'm not trying to convert by definition. I'm not in the conversion business, but forcing them to confront what they believe and to re-examine it. That's been the whole success of the book, actually. And I think if I'd moderated my tone or made it seem as if I could split the difference with them, there would be much less to debate. One needs as much heat as one needs light, because light is only produced by heat.
I don't want to suggest that it's an epidemic, but there does seem to be a big surge of interest in atheism or anti-theism in your case. Not only your book, God is Not Great, which is available apparently in bookstores across the nation, but Richard Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, Bill Maher's popular movie, Religulous. There's atheist bus ad campaigns. Yeah. Why is this all happening now from your perspective?
Because people are fed up with theocratic bullying, both at home and abroad, and they've had too much of it, and they're fed up, I think, also with our profession, yours and my great profession, which always treats people as if the assumption is that they're religious unless you hear to the contrary, as if everyone is a person of faith, or that as if faith was something to be respected. Actually, people are annoyed with this assumption. The fastest growing minority in North America is of those who check the box that say none of the above when asked what faith they profess. And as people open their daily paper and look around the world, they see the nightmare of a theocracy going nuclear in imminently, perhaps both in Iran and in Pakistan. They see what the parties of God are doing to ruin Iraq and Lebanon. They see the mad Jewish settlers in the West Bank trying to bring on Armageddon and the Messiah by stealing other people's property. They see arrogant, ignorant cretins in the United States trying to teach nonsense to children in school by law, trying to stultify children with creationist babble. And they've had enough of it, and they don't like the easy assumptions made by politicians like Bush that if you can just pronounce the word faith, that you've covered yourself on this. I mean, I think it's high time for a pushback, and I'm very proud to be part of it.
But what you've talked about in terms of the growth of the non-believers and the recognition, in fact, from President Obama a couple of times now in talking about non-believers does seem to fly in the face of the orthodoxy in which the world is becoming a more religious place and more polarized as such between the growth of Christianity or the Bible Belt, etc., in the U.S. and Islam in the Middle East, and so why do we hear so much about that?
These things don't come and go in even measurable waves. For example, the fastest growing religion in South America is probably Pentecostal Protestantism. The Catholic Church is on the defensive there. On the other hand, in Africa, the Catholic Church is growing very rapidly. Islam is having several civil wars within itself, both between the modernizers and the fundamentalists, but also between the Sunni and the Shia, between both of those and discrepant sects like the Ahmadi, for example, the Ismaili Muslims. So there's a permanent roiling about which kind of faith it is, impervious, though that may seem, impenetrable, though that may seem to the outsider, and so forth. But there's a steady growth of people who say enough of this. We can live a moral life without religion. And the most successful societies are those that separate the church from the state by law and enforce it by their constitutions. these are the happiest, most prosperous, most democratic countries. And we have